But just like I said, circling back to all the stuff with police reform and policing and everything like that, I think that there is again an unfair burden that are put on individual police officers because of what I talked about before, with police being seen as monolithic. And I
Mhm.
think that that's from what you're saying, and the combination of kind of what I was thinking. I think that that needs to be a message that's put out better, and that's about communication for one, but also, like I said, seeing that meaningful impact in more local areas, I think, is what people are asking for. And it does start with some level of accountability with some of the major cases we've seen and everything like that. But to police's credit, because this is often something that's said, and I agree with it in pure statistics, there are more police interactions every day that don't go viral than the ones that do. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because there's, I don't know how many touch points with police officers, throughout the day. If you're on, on a shift for 8 hours, you may see, depending on the day, and where you work, of course, you may see 20 people, you may see 100, you may see five. It just depends, right?
Sure.
So, how many of those are you going on YouTube and seeing? I would imagine not many. So, you have
Mhm.
millions to the handful that go bad and stuff like that. And so, I think what you're seeing there, and where people aren't feeling those meaningful changes, when you have these instances that seem fairly clear cut, and then there is no accountability for that particular action, and then from my own perspective, there's no follow-up with a change in the law that allowed that to be legal, because that's where I want to see. You're telling me, hey, X case in 1995 or X case in 2020 or 2020 or whatever it is, uh, we couldn't prosecute. We had no legal means to. So, okay, so then change the law, make something happen so you can do it next time. Because you're telling me it's not right, but you're also not telling me you're ever going to do anything about it. And that's where I think the rub is for me. And then that doesn't go to the police department level, because you're talking about policy inside a police department, all those type of things, which are by its very nature, a lot of the people outside of that won't see and won't get to know.
Mhm.
And also, it requires the police department itself to hold itself accountable, which is always, I think, a bad situation to put anybody in. Military did that all the time, and I hated it. I thought that's why it was important sometimes to have outside forces that we could reach out to, and that other people would look at and everything. And
Well, normally that's the case. You just don't
mhm,
see the workings behind the scenes because depending on the agency, depending on the state,
mhm,
the say there's an officer involved shooting.
yeah,
Normally, that agency won't investigate that. They'll have another agency, whether it's the sheriff's department or a neighboring agency or the state agency, come and investigate that. Now,
mhm,
there are some agencies that may still investigate that if they are a large department that have different divisions, then they're equipped to be able to do that. You think about, New York Police Department. They are, the largest police department in the US, so they would be equipped to handle there's a shooting in this district. Okay, let's have these district officers that have nothing to do with these guys over here be able to investigate that, and they have their own internal affairs division, and they have a whole division based on those different aspects. So it's some of it's contextual. There's no blanket um, policies or procedures or laws that are going to hold people accountable. But again, it comes back to saying that the general idea that no one's being held accountable, or that they're like that it's so prolific. You can go on the Washington Post website right now and research how many police shootings there have been in the last. I think it goes back to 2000. Yeah, I
mhm,
don't know if it was 15 or 20 years, and show the steady decline in police involved shootings, and it will break it down into race stats too.
mhm.
Unarmed, armed, black, white, Hispanic, other. You know, you can look at all those stats and see it for yourself. I won't even quote them because no one's going to believe the numbers that come out of my mouth. So go look at it for yourself. And also, there's also another misconception that unarmed means not dangerous.
Mhm.
And so the way that the media spins that, oh, another unarmed person was shot by a police officer. Okay, what is the context? Was it a 280-pound man beating the crap out of a 150-pound female police officer? Does that unarmed person, does that mean that he's not dangerous?
Mhm.
So it's all based on context. Because even in the use of force code, there are different standards. Because me, I'm 240 pounds, I'm 6'3". Okay. Now, if I'm if I have to get in a fight with someone that is 150 pounds, I can't use the defense that he was going to overpower me.
Mhm.
I lose that because of my physical stature. But when you flip it on its head and it's a 280-pound man fighting a 150-pound officer, they get that caveat to say, I was being overpowered. And guess what? Any fight that a police officer gets into, there's a gun involved.
Hmm.
We always bring a gun to the party. Okay. So if we get overpowered, if we get knocked out, guess what they have access to?
Hmm.
And people don't think about those different aspects of the job, or what happens next. If someone sprays you in the face with pepper spray, and police officers know this because you've been through this training. This is why police officers get sprayed with it, to know how long you can go with it, and the fact that you are incapacitated at a certain point to where you can no longer defend yourself.
Hmm.
So there's all of these different factors that go in. And what's sad, what makes it really bad, are certain incidents. Like you said, we don't have to get into specific ones, but the media will put out certain details that aren't true.
Hmm.
Social media grabs onto it and spins it, or they're like, oh, it was my cousin, I heard this, or they're getting likes, they're getting shares on their Twitter account because they're sharing a little bit of details. But it's like, how do you even have those details? Did you tell those details to the police? I've seen a lot of mis and disinformation come out of incidents like that, and they're later found to not be verified.
Hmm.
And so, but we get, what's it, the court of opinion, right? The court of opinion
Hmm.
goes out there, is like, oh, this is what should happen because of everything I saw on Facebook and Instagram. And so I think that this person should go to jail.
Hmm.
This officer should go to jail. But when you actually look at what the details were, they were nothing like what was being spun out there by the media, or social media. So do bad things happen? Yes. Do officers make mistakes? Yes. Should some of them go to jail? Yes. Okay. But we have to look at all the details.
And so
And
I think
that's
that,
the way.
just going back to that, I'd be interested to see, do you have a case that you would hold up as an officer made a mistake and say, for the purposes of this conversation, that they got away with it? There wasn't meaningful impact to them for something they did that you felt they shouldn't have been doing. If you're comfortable saying it, if you're not, if you don't want to throw another officer under the bus, I get that, but I'm just trying to see, because that's the rub. Because I
Mhm.
can point some out, but like you said, unless we want to get into the specifics of an individual case, which we can for one that I think I feel pretty strongly about, but I'm just trying not to pin us down too much on an individual case because, like you said, there are so many minute details that we can go down. But I just didn't know
Mhm.
if you had one that you saw and you're like, yeah, that woman should have gone to jail.
So the fresh one comes in my mind for George Floyd. So I don't I don't know what, did they all end up getting charged already, like convicted? I,
So they did. I know that the main guy, and it's been that long. I forget his name is Derek Chopin or whatever his name is, and
sure,
then
that
and then
idiot.
two of the other ones I believe also did get charged with something officially. But I don't know where that went.
But so that one, they wanted to charge all of them with murder, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And the way that the law is written, I knew that that wasn't going to fly. Like it
Hmm.
may work for the main guy, like it may have fallen in there, but you have to prove certain culpable mental states and what their intent was. And so understanding how the law works, that shouldn't have been a goal. Like, do they need to be held accountable? Do they need to be held accountable criminally and civilly? Yes. Okay. Um, but to what extent, based
Hmm.
on the laws that are in place? If you go say, oh, they all need to be charged with murder, well, guess what? You haven't read the penal code for that state about murder, because it's
Hmm.
not going to fly. Okay. So ignorance of the law and how you think it should be applied based on your opinion doesn't really work. So in that incident, I think that it upset people because of the lower charges that were being pursued.
Hmm.
So maybe in that case, it appears that they're getting away with it because people don't understand the laws, that how they're written and how they're worded, and
Hmm.
how you can actually apply those certain statutes to a situation like that. But I am curious on the one that you were thinking about, and seeing how that could apply, or
Oh,
because I
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So to your point, I agree with you. I thought that there are things that feel right, that aren't the way the laws are written. And that's why I go back to, if you're telling me that you believe that the fact that the law is not written that way, then you need to make it written that way. So I agree with you, because I don't, how do you charge officers who stood by while somebody did something for not stopping them? Is there a good Samaritan law in that state? Like, what are you charging them on, basically? So I agree with you on that. I don't remember, like, we can look it up later, but they were charged with
Depending on
something.
the state law, it could be like negligent homicide
Yeah.
or however they word it. So it would be somewhere in there,
But it's
but to say
political.
that
They're not
you
going to get convicted. You're not convicting him. I'm sorry. Like, the main guy, I believe he'll probably get convicted. The other guys, for not stopping their superior officer, if I'm not mistaken, I think one of them was like basically like his first day. He'd only been there for like a little short amount of time. For not, they're going to get convicted for something. I doubt it. It's a political charge. And I have problems with that, again, going back to what I said, because pragmatically, you're not making things better. You're making you look better, and that doesn't help anybody. So, but I digress. For me, Tamir Rice. Tamir Rice was the main one. I'm from Ohio originally, so that one obviously stuck close to home. Ohio is an open carry state. We've seen the video of the police officers and how they arrived on scene. They weren't tactical. They made tactical errors in the way they approached the situation that led them to having no options other than shooting him. And that's
Mhm.
my problem with overall what happened.
He's the boy that had a toy gun, correct?
Correct. 12-year-old child in a park in an open carry state of
Mhm.
Ohio. And the officer, they drove across the grass to the park. They didn't position themselves where they could speak to him from the bullhorn or give him kind of command, see how he responded, put themselves or other people. And that's the other thing too. They had no reason to do that, because it wasn't like there was other people there immediately in the park that were being put in danger. And
But
just a
what were
lot
the
of factors
dispatch
in that.
notes?
I don't know if you could. Sorry, your video froze there. Could you say that
Sorry.
again?
Yeah, I asked what were the dispatch notes? What were the call notes that they were given?
So that's the part where I think I'm not as crystal clear on. I know this for a fact, that the 911 caller told them that she believed that she said it might be a toy, or I forget now, but it might be a toy. But I don't believe that was passed on to the officers.
Mhm.
I think that the officers were told that there's someone in a park with what could be a gun. But so that's the thing, though. That's where you start there. Let's start there, right? In
Mhm.
Ohio, that's not an illegal offense. You're allowed to do that. None of that is illegal.
Sure.
So, because it's an open carry state.
But again, what the specific context would make a
Mm,
difference, right? Holding a gun in a nonviolent way, or are they pointing it at other kids?
mm,
What was the actual thing that was told? Because the response is going to change completely. Like you said, if you're just carrying it over your shoulder, slung, it's not an issue. You're not carrying it in a manner to alarm, because that's how
mm,
the statutes are normally written. Not carried in a manner to alarm.
right.
Okay, but if you're a kid playing with a toy gun, what are you probably doing with it? You're pointing it at other kids, pulling the trigger. Who knows if it's making cap noises? Who knows, right? So the specific notes that are given to dispatch, you are taken into context, because say you're given this message by a dispatch. There's a young male in the park pointing a gun at other children. The call taker's not sure if it's real or fake.
Hmm.
How would you respond to that?
As I just said, I would approach the scene from more of a distance, because what I'm not going to do, and what did happen in that case, and this is again going into the context of why I believe that this particular case was that heinous, is that they pulled up within feet of the area where the child was. From a
Mhm.
pure tactical standpoint, that is an armed assailant. Why would I put myself in that danger? That is not helping anyone, including myself,
But
to
if you've been
actually
given
approach the
information that there's
situation.
possible danger to others' lives, then you have to.
But that's what I'm saying. You don't have to, from the perspective of how you approach that situation. I am saying that there are other ways to approach it. You pull back further. You're not going to pull within feet of them, because this
Mm,
is what I'm saying.
I
If you are
disagree.
telling me that that person is armed, I don't want to pull up to them with my door to their right. I'm dead. If
Sure.
that person is armed, I'm going to be dead. So you've made a tactical error in the way you approach it, which left you no other option other than to immediately open fire. And
Mhm.
that's where I go into. You took poor choices. You made bad decisions that led you to to a place where you may not have had any other choice to open fire. That makes you
So what is your
culpable.
suggestion? He should have parked a quarter mile back and started giving commands?
And I don't know about a quarter mile. That's a bit far, but you park
Right.
further back. You put yourself in a position where you could, if you put yourself in a
But what if you
position,
believe that there are lives at danger? Like, someone is going to die in this park right now.
then that's
Are you gonna park back there?
even more important why I can't die. Because if I die, guess what? Those lives are still in danger. So I need to approach the situation in a place that gives me the best opportunity to not get killed and keep
Mhm.
everybody in danger. And that's what I'm saying. So if the person had been armed, take to the other way. Tamir Rice is an armed assailant. He actually was trying to hurt people. that
Mhm.
officer is dead immediately. So
Sure, he made
you
poor tactical choice because I would have just run the person over with my car.
well, no, he's in a gazebo. You're not gonna be able to do that. And that's
Okay,
also what I'm
well,
saying. And
alright,
another thing,
I don't have all the details of it, but I wouldn't have
right.
parked with my driver door to them, but I
Well,
definitely would
sorry,
have
sorry, sorry.
gotten
His
close
passenger door,
enough.
because his partner is driving. His partner is driving. He hops out with the passenger door to him or whatever. I shouldn't have made it sound like he was solo. He had his partner with him. There's two of
Okay,
them.
well, then I'm gonna
One
have worse
assailant.
with the guy driving.
Well, obviously that's something else that just happened. But that's my point. Like you, in to your, I don't know if you're joking or not, but you're not going to run him over either because you have no assessment of the scene yet. So just
Mhm.
to assault him without assessing the scene, without doing any of those type of things or whatever, and that's kind of where I, like I said, I stand on is that they made several tactical errors that, in essence, if you're telling me they had no other choices, that's because you made poor choices leading up to that. So
Sure.
that makes you culpable. You don't get to just go, "Oh, I made all these mistakes and then I had to shoot him." It's like, no, you made poor choices that led you having to shooting. Meaning those poor choices matter. You're culpable for that. And again, and then you go extra layers deep into the onion, and they didn't know this at the time, but that officer had been fired by another department, or no, excuse me, didn't get fired by the department. I think he didn't get passed through his initial training or something like that. They said he's unfit. He should never hold a weapon. His TO at that time said he should never be a cop, essentially. And then,
Those are
that, but
important
he
facts.
lied. He lied on his job form.
Mhm.
And so, but again, you go through all those different layers of it as they pull out that information, and there's no charges filed.
But
There,
still,
there's,
you have to go in with the culpable mental states, like, what is the intent?
but that's the thing. If we're only looking at a 10 for police officers, then every police officer will always walk,
Mhm.
and
So
that's the problem.
the different states. So, and I'm not familiar with Ohio laws, but in
Mhm,
Texas, it's four different culpable mental states: intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, or with criminal negligence. Okay,
mhm.
and based on different offenses, all have different culpable mental states. Some of them have multiple. Some of them have all four. Some of them just have one.
Yeah,
So it depends on what you're trying to charge them with, and the way that some of these laws work. And this is the rub when attempting to go for the highest charge. Okay. And again, I'm only going to speak for Texas because that's the only state I'm familiar with. When
mhm.
you go for the highest charge on certain offenses, like let's say murder, it doesn't always have a lower included
Yep,
offense.
agreed. I know exactly where you're going, and I thought that's where you're going. Yeah, and I political. That's political charging. You knew that when you charged him with that nonsense.
But when there's people pushing for that, like, no, we need to charge them with murder because in the police department, when we've had guys, when officers get shot,
Mhm.
and there's push from the department for the DA's office to go for the higher charge, and the DA's office, you come in and be like, hey, look, guys, we can charge them with the highest charge, like we can go for that if you guys want, like if you guys are actually pushing for this, we will do it because there's politics involved, right? Especially when you get
Mhm.
the whole department,
Yep.
pushing the DA's office going like, we want to charge them with, aggravated assault on a police officer and or attempted murder on a police officer. I think that was the incident I'm thinking of. They wanted to go with attempted murder, but they're like, hey, hang on a second, guys, because if we can't prove that, then there's nothing we can drop it to, and then it's
Mhm.
just dismissed. So the safer bet would be to go with aggravated assault on a peace officer. So in case that one doesn't stick, there are lesser included offenses that we can go, well, since it didn't meet that culpable mental state, the jury can agree that it may not have been intentional, but it was knowingly.
Mhm.
Okay. But when you go for murder and the only thing in there is intentional,
Yep.
and you're asking the jury, did that officer intentionally kill that child with the intent to just kill them? And you have to ask the jury that.
Mhm.
And when they go, No, it wasn't intentional. He should have known, but he didn't. And like you said, you've got all these extra factors outside that he probably shouldn't have been in the police in the first place. He lied on his admission forms,
Yeah.
and so you can't charge him with anything else because there's no lesser included offense. So
Mhm.
that's something that a lot of people don't understand. It sounds like you do understand that
Oh yeah.
aspect, um, but people don't grasp that when there is political push to charge him with the highest crime. Oh, this police officer, we need to charge him with murder. The DA is probably going, hey, that's not a good idea. No, I don't care what you think. We're going to charge him with it. He's going to get convicted. It's like, okay, if you tell me to do it, I'm going to do it, even though I disagree with it. And it's not statistically probable that they will get convicted of this particular offense. understand that there's nothing else to fall back on. So
Mm.
that's a whole different conversation that people aren't involved in because they don't understand how certain laws like that work. So it seems like you're suggesting that we throw some different caveats in there to make it easier to convict people on certain offenses when maybe they're not the appropriate charges.
Thanks for checking out Starting Nowhere. Come find us on Facebook so you can comment on this and other clips and episodes of Starting Nowhere.